A boy named Yao passed away from drowning. Afterwards, his father crafted a doll, slapped Yao's photo onto its face, and carried on living at home, creating a vibe that was utterly eerie and terrifying. Many netizens question if Yao's dad was just after hype, even trolling Yao online. Still, when folks go through major upheavals and profound grief, they do act in ways others cannot grasp. For instance, this woman, after her husband's sudden death, grew fond of licking his ashes if she skipped a day. Her whole body ached. She said that each time she licked them, her heart felt full as if her husband were still by her side. And there are even more bizarre deeds than those. Today, we shall start with the tragedy of Yao in Chongqing to chat about strange cases tied to bereavement. Lately, if you scroll through short videos, you have likely seen your feed flooded by a meme called Yao, a doll with a photo stuck to his face, clad in kids' clothes, showing up all over the place. It even shows up by the home dining table, on beds, and so on, just like a person living a normal life. Even scarier, many netizens turned Yao into an AI animated version. Scrolling past that late at night would make you jump right out of your skin. But some folks say that creepy Yao dances cabbage, smiles at me video was made by his own dad. How much more unsettling is that? Here is what went down. In summer 2023, a father named Gong Zhongqing took his 6-year-old only son, Yao, out for some wild swimming. But since he was on shore scrolling on his phone, Yao drowned with no swift rescue and died right there on the spot. Later, Gong Zhongqing posted tons of short videos first, photos and clips of Yao from before he passed, but then they morphed into a bizarre aesthetic. He printed out his son's photo, stuck it onto a doll's face, and then took that doll everywhere he went even when he stepped outside. He also filmed tons of his daily interactions with Yao, like eating together, taking walks, and even sleeping in the same bed with that doll. Reportedly, since the doll looked eerie, Gong Zhongqing would often place it by a street-facing window to create the scene of Yao gazing at the view. But neighbors on the street who saw this found it utterly spine-chilling, sparking clashes with Gong Zhongqing multiple times. And once Gong Zhongqing shot short videos and uploaded them, they swiftly spread online. Still, folks sympathized with Gong Zhongqing at first. Even if the video felt unsettling, they could grasp his crushing guilt and mental breakdown. Back then, many folks in the comments tried to console him, but soon things took a weird turn. Gong Zhongqing's behavior grew extreme. He live-streamed the late-night mourning and paper burning, engaged in online flame wars, attacked indiscriminately, and harassed female netizens. If someone asked one question, he'd tell female netizens to bear his children. Plus, some users found his account often liked pages full of videos of pretty women. From this, folks surmised he cared not a whit about his child's death. Posting videos was just to chase clout, and making that doll show zero respect for the deceased. Some even guessed he would buy accident insurance for the kid, so he deliberately put the child in peril. All to make a buck. Once these notions spread, some netizens began to troll him. Soon, AI-generated video of Yao flooded the web, and some even stole the doll Gong Zhongqing made. Folks joked, so you failed to protect Yao this time too. Some even flocked to the comments to lambast Gongjing, but no matter what netizens said, he would not refute them. Instead, he would play along. For instance, when someone said he bought accident insurance for his kid, he replied, "Come bear me a prime baby and let us split that accident payout." Or some folks thought that saying he wanted to find another woman to bear a child, so soon after his kid passed away was highly improper, and he replied, "Got any unmarried women in your family?" This stance swiftly drew flack from netizens. As buzz grew, some meddlesome netizens even posed as him, trolling and posting contentious remarks. For instance, that widespread tale about Yao's father getting tons of cash posts on his death and even using a Lenovo Legion PC. Yeah, that was fake info posted by trolls. In fact, Gong Zhongqing's own account got banned shortly after the incident for posting content that was too unsettling. This affair blew up again recently for other reasons, but that is off topic for today, so we will not get into it. So aside from a few early comments he posted himself, much of that wild info might not even be true. Like exclusively using Lenovo Legion and harassing women via DMs. I scoured the web, but found no screenshots of those alleged harassing DMs. Only he, in the comments, would ask folks male or female to bear his children, or have netizens introduce folks to him for that purpose. But such words could well be said in anger, more like someone throwing caution to the wind after a heavy blow. As for the notion he meant to drown his child to claim a huge insurance payout, such speculation is baseless. On the contrary, official records from the People's Government of Dadekou District, Chongqing Municipality, show Gong Zhongqing is a low-income resident, receiving 810 yuan in monthly aid. Plus, he is the only one left in his household. In other words, Gong Zhongqing had lost all his family. He and Yao had relied on each other, and Yao was his one and only emotional pillar. Yet, via his own carelessness, Yao passed away. Subsequently, he developed severe mental distress, which spurred many odd behaviors, including crafting that doll, mourning aloud, and lashing out at netizens indiscriminately. In fact, folks acting strangely after a major shock is not some rare case, especially making eye puppets to bring back loved ones, which is quite widespread. In 2023, a studio in China called Superbrain received over 200 orders to resurrect the deceased via AI digital human. Around a quarter of those orders came from parents who had lost their only child. They supply voice and video clips of their kids, letting AI mimic the deceased's speech and habits to bring their child back to life on screen. Many of them chat with these AI personas daily, viewing it as their sole reason to live on. If they were to post clips online of themselves, weeping and laughing while interacting with that AI to us, that might seem bizarre and unsettling too. And the reason they do such illogical things is that they've fallen into a trauma cycle. Most folks eventually move on, but some just cannot. Today, I will share a sad, somewhat scary urban legend. Been a while since I covered one of those. In 1994, police in Texas got a silent emergency call. Police traced the call's address to a home, only to find its female owner, Olivia Mabel, had been dead in her basement for a month. At that time, Olivia was clutching a small doll, and there was what looked like a religious altar at the scene. Inside lay photos of her long-departed son, along with toys he would loved in life and such like. Police went to ask a local shaman, who said the altar was for soul summoning, and that the Sanskrit and Tibetan script upon it pertained to such concepts as creating thoughts. But Olivia summoned a malevolent spirit, and so suffered backlash and died. Turns out, Olivia's son, Aiden, tragically drowned back in 1990. Afterwards, Olivia had a mental breakdown. She wept daily, unable to function at all, such that her husband divorced her over it. Later, she grew obsessed with the lore of resurrecting the dead and soul summoning, and crafted dolls and altars based on witchcraft. At the scene, a note to read, "My Aiden, I am sorry, I will not let you take me away. You evil monster," words that seem to back up the shaman's guess. Even more chillingly, the date on that note turned out to be the very day the police found the body. By then, Olivia had been dead for 1 month. So who made that call to the police? And who penned that note? This tale circulates widely across US websites, while it's an urban legend. In reality, there are countless cases of bereaved parents who subscribe to soul summoning or reincarnation. Plus, the paranoia and delusions shown by this mother in the tale pale in comparison to real-life cases. British psychologist John Bowlby posited that when faced with profound grief, people go through 4 stages: numbness, yearning and searching, despair phase, and recovery stage. Normally, folks oscillate between those 4 stages, then eventually enter the recovery stage and move past their grief. But in reality, many folks get stuck in one of the first 3 stages, and that's the trauma cycle. In the numbness phase, the brain triggers a self-preservation mode, and one instinctively shuns reality, denying the tragedy's truth. In the searching phase, one seeks traces of the deceased, revisiting old items or fantasizing to convince themselves they are still alive. Yo-Yo's father, Gong Zhongqing, his act of making that doll fell within those 2 stages. Since the doll is a physical manifestation of denying death, and living normally with it means falling into the mental fantasy that the deceased is still around. Normally, the yearning and searching phase lasts from days to months, then gradually wanes until moving into the next stage, the despair phase. Here, the person stops searching for any trace of the deceased, since they grasp that the dead cannot return, yet they cannot move into the recovery stage. Instead, they sink into emptiness and depression. When this stage drags on for too long, extreme ritualistic behaviors may emerge, and that is the most dangerous part. That woman who ate her husband's ashes, that is Casey. Her husband died in an accident, trapped in a trauma cycle. Casey sought out any items bearing her husband's essence, and the ashes perfectly met her psychological needs. So she licked her husband's ashes each day. Skipping even 1 day made her feel awful all over. She said that each time she licked them, she felt fulfilled, as if her husband were still right there beside her. In less than 6 months, Casey ate up all her husband's ashes. But once the ashes were gone, Casey sank into deeper anxiety and self-blame. This is, in fact, a form of extreme grief compulsion. She uses the physical act of consuming to try and internalize the deceased within herself, granting herself a fleeting sense of security. A similar case arose in Turkey/Turkey, where a 23-year-old married man's 4-month-old daughter fell ill and passed away. Prior to that, he'd also witnessed his uncle's murder, where the killer severed his uncle's head and genitals. These 2 events combined dealt him a severe mental blow. After his daughter died, he started using a razor blade to slice his own arms, chest, and belly, dripping the blood into a cup and then drinking it. This self-harm left him profoundly frail, yet his blood-drinking urge, much like an addiction, proved impossible to shake. So he began randomly stabbing passers-by and even biting folks straight up to suck their blood. His father, left with no choice, stole blood bags from the local blood bank for him to drink. Later, he was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and a rare vampire condition, and was finally sent to a mental hospital for treatment. All these mental issues of his stemmed from his daughter's death, that final, fatal straw. When one simply cannot accept a loved one's passing, any extreme act becomes possible. Many folks fall into long-term mental distress post a loved one's passing, yet remain unaware of this silence, thinking it is normal, is the most perilous of all. Current research suggests that the 3 stages numbness, yearning and searching, and despair phase should each last no longer than 6 months. If any stage lasts far beyond that time frame, it likely signals a trauma cycle and warrants treatment. Yet, surveys show 98.76% of those with post-bereavement psychological abnormality never sought mental help, and many among them developed behavioral oddities and aggression. In fact, many folks hold a misconception about grief and depression, that they lack any outward aggression. I see many say that those with depression are good folks who only harm themselves, not others. This view is quite wrong. Many mental disorders entail impaired prefrontal cortex function, which leads to reduced impulse control and a marked spike in aggression, thus prone to paranoia and violence. Some netizens felt that after Yaoyao's passing, Gong Chongqing still verbally attacked passersby. Ergo, he is not grieving at all, thus some scheme must be afoot, a classic case of using emotion to grasp illness. Of course, folks have the right to think Gong Chongqing's replies to netizens were improper. But to thus mete out a casual cyber conviction, or to use the innocent Yaoyao to stir things up, is by no means just. Instead of online frenzies, let us focus on affected friends and family, and if someone struggles to enter their recovery stage, we can also alert their families so it does not escalate to a point that harms their mental health. Well, that's all for today's content. This is Bu Yue Shuo. Do remember to like and follow me. See you next time. Bye.